All right, this past weekend we had several fights on several cards. There was one fight in particular out of all of them that I most look forward to. When I woke up the next morning, obviously yesterday morning, in spite of the fact we had Dave Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade, I was more interested in watching Subriel Matias. I was more interested in watching him versus Ergashev because for me, I've said this once, I'll say it again, he is one of, maybe even the most entertaining fighter, certainly for me, that's around right now. And I was going to say underrated, but he's not really underrated, is he? I mean, underrated means as though that like not many people rate his talent. I think a lot of people do. I think that he is largely in the Who Needs You club. I mean, he really is part and parcel of that club. You look back through the years, you had people like Rigondeaux in it. You had people like Triple G, specifically Triple G, in it, where you go back to, say, 2012, 2013, around about that time, you had people who, they didn't, some people didn't really know who Triple G was. You had other people who, hyping him up and saying, this guy is looking phenomenal, this, that, and the other. I remember when he was fighting Curtis Stevens, there was a few people thinking, this Curtis Stevens, he's gonna show people what this Triple G guy is all about. And we know what happened there. A lot of people started really taking note of Triple G then. But the problem with Triple G was that, he was avoided. Well, it didn't help that the middleweight division was weak. But then when you had guys like Cotto moving up to get a belt, you had Sergio Martinez, who was looking to do the Miguel Cotto fight, and then obviously Canelo when he moved up and he picked up a title. They avoided this guy like the Black Plague, to the point where what he did was he ended up just fighting his mandatories, one after the other. A lot of them were not the strongest mandatories, to be fair, because again, the middleweight division at the time wasn't amazing. You had your Dominic Wade, your Willie Monroe's, David Lemieux was the champion, Hassan Ndam, I think, was a champion at one stage. But these were not, amazing, jaw drops. So he went through all them. It wasn't like that. But again, the big guys, the Canelos of the world, the Cottos of the world, they didn't want to know. Did not want to know, especially in 2016. He has to go and fight Kell Brook, bring Kell Brook up 2 weights, fight him. Then he finally gets, a decent crack when he fights Danny Jacobs. Good fight, showed a few vulnerabilities. From that point in, Canelo was like, yep, let's have it. And you could argue that even in the first Canelo fight, Triple G was a bit past his best. And I worry, is this going to be a similar thing here with Subriel Matias? Because you look on screen, this guy is all action. This guy, I likened him a little bit to Alexander Usyk in a way. Obviously, stylistically, he's nothing like Alexander Usyk. But he is someone who can have a look for the first round or two at the opponent. And when you look at him in fights, you'll see that the opponent has some success early on. Ergashev did. Jeremiah Ponce landed loads of shots on Subriel Matias, and that was a great fight. Jeremiah Ponce versus Subriel Matias. Absolutely fantastic. He lets them guys do that. And just think for the opponent how horrible that must be, how just draining that must be to go in the first or second round, really light this guy up, and he's still there, doesn't show any signs of fatigue, and then he just starts an electric pace and he's hitting you extremely hard. I mean, have you seen Ergashev's face post-fight? My guy got battered blue. He really did. And when you look at this guy, he's going in there with guys like Jeremiah Ponce, Ergashev, undefeated guys who, again, they're kind of, going a bit under the radar. Guys like that beat Lewis Ritson, did Jeremiah Ponce, but go a bit under the radar. He's going in there and he's just fighting them. Why is he doing that? Well, largely because he's not being mentioned by some of the other guys, and I worry, is that going to be a case that he's going to get frozen out? I certainly hope it's not. Given the fact he has a title, it does help him, but this guy at 140, he is a serious problem, and he is Puerto Rican, 20 and 1 with 20 knockouts. Every man he's fought, he stopped, and the one loss he did avenge. And you look at this guy, his last, how many? His last 5 fights, every guy has quit. The latest was the guy, Ayan, I think is how you pronounce him, the guy who beat him, who went 9 rounds. That was the guy who done the little kind of, it was a bit like Canelo when he knocked out Amir Khan, although not as dramatic. That was the guy from that clip. This guy is making people quit left, right, and centre. And here's another thing. Out of those 5 wins, all retirements, only one of them had a loss. Right? Every other one was undefeated. Like, this guy is going in there and he's just tearing through these guys. He's beating them left, right, and centre, battering them. And bear in mind, this is a guy who has a very entertaining style, throws up to 100 punches around, hits very hard, and the opponent, when you see the opponents in there, they cannot keep this guy off him. This guy's got a great work rate. Puerto Rican, right? A lot of those guys tend to get behind their fighters. You know, if you would say who's the most highly touted Puerto Rican fighter currently in boxing, some people would say Edgar Berlanga. I'd laugh and I'd say Subriel Matias. Have to get behind this guy. Absolutely have to. And I really hope, because it's frustrating when you look at the lightweight division, Lopez on top. This is the BoxRec rankings, so take these with a grain of salt. They won't be accurate. But Lopez on top, Prograis, Richardson Hitchens, Arnold Barbosa Jr., and then Subriel Matias. We're obviously missing Devin Haney. Obviously, we're missing... Oh no, Ryan Garcia is there. People like that, you know. Devin Haney is obviously not mentioned. But when they do end up getting ranked, and say Devin Haney beats Regis Prograis, right? I'd love to see Haney versus Matias, because if Haney can't hold in that fight, he's in for a world of trouble. Prograis against Matias, I'd love to see that. Lopez versus Matias, I'd love to see that. Garcia, that could get real ugly for Ryan Garcia in there against Subriel. Real ugly. You look at people like O'Hara Davis, Jack Cattrall, you know, I'd see them as just lamb to the slaughter for Subriel Matias. I really would. This guy at 140, we have a very, very good fighter. Potential pay-per-view star there. Some would argue he needs to leave PBC. Maybe they're not doing enough for him. And you could argue that, but at the end of the day, you know, maybe if he did go to, say, someone like a Top Rank, although he's fought on Top Rank before, that was a fight that ended in tragedy, obviously. That was on the undercard of Teofimo Lopez versus Nakatani. He obviously fought Maxim Dabashev. We know what happened there. RIP to him. But if you could go on to someone like Top Rank or Eddie Hearn, fight, maybe headline with a Berlanga instead of having Berlanga on the undercard, you know, do an all Puerto Rican card or something like that. That would be a good move, because I don't know if PBC are necessarily the place for him. But I think with this guy, I look at this guy and I think there's a star here. Like, you got a potential Miguel Cotto for the 2020s with this guy, because he's so entertaining. He's so fan friendly. He throws so many punches. He's only 31 years old, so we still have about 3 to 4 years with him. Subriel Matias, the title of this video, is a very, very bad man. And he absolutely is. I mean, this guy right here, it's weird, because part of me feels as though some people don't really know who he is. But you look at post-fight reviews and there's thousands and thousands of views, more reviews than most of the main events. So I wonder if that all Puerto Rican, I don't know. But if it would just be about getting this guy out to the casual fans, if this video or anything can help it, I would. Because honestly, I cannot speak more highly of Subriel Matias. One of the most, maybe even, if you take... See, Deontay Wilder is probably my favourite fighter to watch just because of that sudden boom knockout. But his fights can be boring at times. You're just waiting for that big knockout. With Matias, 5 rounds is like 15 rounds of some other fight you could watch. You know, and when I look at some of the guys in boxing now who, you know, are up at the, you know, the helm, the forefront, you look at someone like Shakur Stevenson, who stung the joint out there a fortnight ago, and you think Matias is way more entertaining than... And Shakur Stevenson's a great fighter, but way more entertaining. Like, you would be looking at... You'd wake up the next morning and be like, Shakur fought... I might just glance at the highlights. With Matias, you're like, where's the fight? I want to see it. You do not want to miss it. You're like, I want to see that fight. If I didn't catch it live, I want to catch up on the replay. And I want to watch the full fight, not the highlights. You look at like Lawrence Okoli being, you know, told he's going to be the face of boxing on Sky, and Ben Shalom and Sky, Eddie Hearn did as well. L's left, right and centre on the shows where he goes and stinks the joint out, right? And yet you've Subriel Matias, world champion. This guy couldn't be in a boring fight if he tried. Honestly, like this guy, I cannot emphasise and stress enough how fun this guy is to watch and how talented I think he is. And my biggest worry for Subriel Matias is that he kind of is going to be just that IBF champion who just defends his title, not because he wants to, you know, like Elise Selby, who just had a title and defended it without ever trying to do anything with it. But this is someone who maybe will try and do something with it, but for whatever reason, boxing establishment, politics, etc. won't let him. And I hope that's not the case until, of course, you know, maybe he's 34, 35, slow down a bit, and then like, oh yeah, you see, he was never that good to begin with. Because that's a narrative a lot of people will come out with. So that's my thoughts. Let me know, did you see Matias' fight the weekend? If you haven't, I recommend you go and watch it. I think it's on YouTube now. I mean, the highlights I watched were not great. You know, the full fight was kind of like, they only got them up as far as so you couldn't really see the footwork or anything like that going on. But I recommend you go and watch that fight if you can get it. Or his fight with Jeremiah Ponce, it's 5 rounds. Oh, good Lord, you will not be disappointed. That's one of the fights of the year right there. That fight, you will not be disappointed in that one. So if you've not heard, if you've not watched Subriel Matias, I recommend you go and you watch those fights specifically. This guy is a very bad man. Very bad man. And I think this guy has star quality. I really do. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, I will leave it with that. Peace.